Welcome to Algebra 1. In this lesson, 1.1, we will be solving equations with variables on both sides. What you will learn, the learning intentions are you will solve equations using properties of equality. By the end of the lesson, to make sure that you have succeeded in your learning intention, you will be able to describe the properties of equality, explain how to use the properties of equality to solve equations. The vocabulary for this lesson: we have an equation is a statement that two expressions are equal. Linear equation in one variable, and it's an equation that could be written in the form ax plus b, for a and b are constants, so numbers, and a is different than 0. A solution is a value that makes an equation true. Inverse operations are pairs of operations that undo each other. Equivalent equations are equations that have the same solutions. And a property in math is any characteristic that applies to a given set or collection of things. There are two core concepts in this lesson: the addition property of equality and the subtraction property of equality. Now, in each of them, you are doing the same thing to both sides of the equation at the same time to maintain equality of that equation, using a different operation. For addition, it is when you add the same thing to both sides. When it's subtraction, that's when you subtract the same thing for both sides. When you do that, you maintain equality of the phenomenon in the universe that you are using math to model. And that relationship among items is always representing something that's real. And you want to maintain those accurate relationships among those pieces of information in order to keep that through your equation and then use that equation to find out information about the situation. Here's an example for us. So what we have in front of us is the direction to solve each equation and to justify each step. So the steps are listed on the left-hand side, and we have 3 of them. So this is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. The first step is really just to write the equation. So this would be like something that's given to you. The next step is to subtract 3 from both sides. But you might ask, where did that come from? Well, we want to get this variable by itself, so this 3 has to go to the other side. And the only way to do that is when you change sides, you change signs. And that would be the shortcut for using the subtraction property of equality here and here. Doing to one side of the equation, you also do to the other. And so then what we're looking at is these pair of 3's right here, that they sum to 0. And so that's n plus 0 is equal to 4. And when you add 0 to anything, you just get that something. So in this case, n equals 4, and then we box it. That's our final answer. And that just was a step of simplifying. In our second example, we have 8 equals x plus 5. And then we realize that I want this x all by itself. And the way to do that is to grab this 5 that's being added to it and send it to the other side. So the way that you do that, because it still has to remain accounted for, the original relationships remain true, just in a different form. And what we're looking at here is subtracting both sides by 5, using the subtraction property of equality. What you do to one side, you do to the other, and you maintain equality. And so that would represent then a difference over here of 8 minus 5, which is equal to 3. And then over here we have, to simplify, a pair of additive inverses. And so then we get them to sum to 0. And so we arrive at our final answer, which we box. And we want to write the variable first. left to right, like how we read in English. And the variable is really the subject. It's our focus. We want to find something out about it. We want to express that mathematically, whatever we find. And so we start with the subject of the sentence and then its verb, you could say afterward, like what it is. Okay, so what do we learn in this lesson? We're going to review that at this point. The first thing is that we solved equations using properties of equality. And by now we can describe two of the properties of equality, the one for addition and the one for subtraction, that what you do to both sides is going to be the thing that allows you to change the form but maintain equality. And you could explain how to use those properties of equality to solve equations, that you can go step by step and point out what steps you're doing. We learned a handful of vocabulary. An equation is a statement that two expressions are equal. Linear equation in one variable is an equation that can be written in the form ax plus b. So today we really just warmed up with kind of x plus b, I would say, is equal to some constant c. So it's almost a full linear expression, but right now we don't have any coefficients in front of the x, and we'll get to that fullest expression in the next lesson. We also learned what a solution is. That is a value that makes an equation true. Inverse operations are pairs of operations that undo each other, and equivalent equations are equations that have the same solutions. And just to kind of give you some structure about the lingo of mathematics, a mathematical property like the addition property of equality is any characteristic that applies to a given set. So the entire realm of equations in algebra all follow that rule called an axiom, a given rule that what you do to one side of the equation you could do to the other, specifically addition and subtraction we covered today. And we do this using inverse operations. So right here and right here are your pairs of inverse operations. And so if you remember today, we started with something added to our variable, and then we use the inverse operation of addition, which is subtraction, to then remove that quantity from the side that has the variable, kind of like you're isolating on in a soccer match. And then you have division with multiplication. That's the inverse operations we'll check out next lesson. The core concepts again are right here, that if you start with A and B equaling, and we know that that is true, then we can build off of it. We can start changing the form up. And we could do so by adding the same thing that's a number to both sides. And we could also subtract the same thing from both sides, maintaining equality so the truth of the original relationship remains.